One of the arguments against cameras in federal courts is that some judges and lawyers fear people might play to the cameras and that it could affect the outcome of a trial. But when you think about it, don't cameras make a difference in everyday news coverage as well, like the Baltimore riots? Do cameras make a difference when covering a volatile situation, like the protests over the death of 25-year-old Freddie Gray in Baltimore while in police custody?
They say that they are going to march on the City Hall on Thursday, and at that point...
To answer my own question, yes. When a camera is visible and in action, it's going to draw a crowd, and possibly draw out the worst in a crowd.
Smashing windows of stores and cars.
The videographer taking this video was knocked over. But to be clear, the media did not start the riots. In fact, most weren't even there when the protests were nonviolent, as Jon Stewart pointed out.
Whilst the A-list of America's media political complex fiddled on this Saturday night, 40 miles from District of Mimosa, actual news was occurring.
On Saturday night, CNN spent hours covering the White House Correspondents' Dinner. It wasn't until things turned ugly that the networks mobilized.
Looters robbing stores in broad daylight.
While the focus has been on bad behavior, there's been a lot of enlightening stories too. Like this CNN report on a gang truce.
The looting and the fires or whatever, is that gang related? Who is that?
No, that's not gang related.
It makes us look bad, man, because it's not the cause.
It's clearly the case that there are any number of realities, and slowly but surely they're being uncovered. Like this surveillance video showing the police van carrying Freddie Gray making an unreported stop. But the sad fact is, once the violence disappears, so will the media. I'm not at all critical, I want to make that clear, because everybody reported the story when it first happened. It was another in a long series, unfortunately, of incidents like this that have happened since last summer. The difference was that they weren't really there in force, in action, when the protests were, for the large part, peaceful and large. I mean, they were big protests. So they all scrambled down after the funeral of Freddie Gray. That's what all started. And I have to say, when you're walking down a street in a very volatile situation, in a very volatile neighborhood, with a camera, a big one, going like this, and you're on a cell phone, you're going to attract a crowd. So there was a couple of incidents, I thought, that made me feel very uncomfortable. And some of the stuff, the live shots on the streets, right in the middle of the protesting, the rioting, and the rock throwing, made me uneasy. But once again, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have done it. It's just that you're creating, I think, exacerbating a situation.
Yeah, you know, one of the problems I have with moments like this and the way the media cover them is the continuous live coverage. I don't think it even serves the viewer. You tune in and you're trying to figure out what's going on, and they're talking to people you don't know, and it does tend to create some of what they're hoping for in terms of getting the crowd incensed, etc. I think that the reported pieces that I saw did put things in context and did a very good job and made the point that there had been a lot of large peaceful protests for days before this started to get out of hand. You turn on CNN and watch the continuing live coverage, and it looks like it's just nonstop chaos, which really is not the case.
I guess the problem that I have is that we had a cycle of these by now. Yeah. We know now what we've seen in other communities where situations like this has happened, where there's been police brutality, or there's been the death of people of color, communities upset, understandably so. By now, media companies should have this figured out a little bit more. They should know that whatever it is that you're thinking of for your first day package or story should really be the second day. You shouldn't get there and just expect to roll camera on whatever's happening. And I have a problem with the nonstop coverage of people throwing things into a CVS or a Subway, or repeatedly showing a picture of the woman who smacked her child. You know, we're trying to encapsulate a bigger story that has so much context and so much history into these sound bites, and it doesn't do anybody any good.
Well, I think that's the issue. What was covered there is just moments, and just violent ones, period. That's what it is. And, you know, people are looking for some action to cover. So, you know, what got me was that it took a long time, even on the second day, to recognize that there were people cleaning up, And there were whole groups of folks, and there was a whole lot of misreporting of the Bloods and the Crips standing in front of the cops. They're attacking the cops. No, they're not. They're standing in front of the cops so that people who would-be rock throwers could not get past them. So, we're just looking for, what might be obvious. So to Justin's point, it's, obvious kinds of stuff. And to your point, it's moment by moment, and there's nothing contextual about it. And it's not even at this point. That's just not bad journalism. That's just not how you tell a story.
Well, to their credit, I only skipped over that gang unity piece, but that was well done. I mean, it's an insight into that world to listen to a lot of those guys talk, but they were claiming they had nothing to do with the rioting, inciting it, or the looting or anything like that, and they gave them a fair amount of time to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, we saw the best and the worst of the media, or of continuous cable news coverage, which is mainly what I was watching, on display this past week. Among the best, I thought Anderson Cooper continues to just amaze me and distinguish himself with his capacity to bring calm and balance and perspective to a story that's breaking all around him. The worst, there's a lot of competition there. I think Geraldo's debate on the street with one of the protesters where they're standing nose to nose screaming. At one point, they appeared to cut away so Geraldo could have his makeup buffed up and everything. Really, this is not the appropriate setting for this kind of thing. I guess I would just simply say, Wolf Blitzer made a comment at one point, I can't believe this is happening in 2015. You can't? Maybe you need to get out a little more, and maybe you and your network need to get out into urban America a little bit more and cover a story that's been going on for many, many years and raises all sorts of profound policy questions that they should be paying attention
I really
to.
wonder.
Where was Wolf in 2014? He was in the same situation room. I mean, you were in the situation room when Ferguson happened.
And he said the same thing. Short-term memory loss.
Are they going to disappear?
It's the beard.
Are they going to disappear as soon as this calms down?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
One more plane crash and they're gone.
Yeah.